journey. What's the plan?
So today, Mark, we are going to meet someone called Yarden Gur. She's an anti-Zionist Israeli, a young woman who's been living here more than 10 years, I think, in the UK, and has got into anti-Zionist activism here. She's become very active in the pro-Palestinian cause. So I'm going to find out what led her to break with the whole tradition. She was brought up in the Zionist tradition, and what form that break took and how it played out, and the insights it will give us into Zionism and how it works, the pernicious way it works inside Israel itself. So yeah, I'm really excited about this.
Okay, great.
Interview. Should be very good.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, let's
All
go.
right, let's
See
do
you
it.
there. Yeah,
See you there.
good.
Yarden Gur, it's great to see you. Read your piece in Vashti, and I thought it was really interesting about where you grew up and the kind of atmosphere and culture that you grew up in. So if you could tell us a bit about that to start off with, where your origins, so to speak.
So I grew up from around the age of 5 in an area in the north of Israel called Misgav. It's in the West Galilee. So the Galilee is this area in the north of Israel that's very kind of beautiful and green and just very, very calm and special in that way. But before that, I was actually born in Emek Yizrael, which is also in the north, but it's closer to Haifa. And I was born in a moshav, which is kind of like a kibbutz, but a separate kind of like fake socialist project that was also like one of the first forms of settlement in Palestine, even before Israel was established, were moshavs, and my mom's family were pioneers. They're like very early Zionists, like in the 1920s, and they were part of the group that established this moshav where I was born. So my mom's family are really like sort of model Zionist family. They had all the kind of Zionist ideals where, you know, they need to make the desert bloom and sort of save this land for the Jewish people. And in Israel, those like older families, they have this special status, like they think very highly of themselves. And then my mom's dad, my granddad, he's a Holocaust survivor, so he was born in Hungary, and his whole family died, but he and his mother were basically saved by non-Jewish relatives who hid them. But yeah, he was saved. I think he was around like 8 years old or something like that. And then after the war, a few years after the war, I think it was 15, he came to Israel with there were a lot of like youth organizations that just brought all the children, like whether they were orphans or just like there was nothing really left of the family, so they just kind of brought them to Israel. And his mom stayed there. I think she remarried. I don't really know much about
His mom stayed in Budapest?
Hungary, yeah. So I grew up as part of this, like 100% like Israeli childhood. Very, I guess, a specific kind of Israeli childhood. So in Israel, the most important division, obviously after Jews and Palestinians, or Jews and everyone else, to be fair, is Ashkenazi and Mizrahi. Being Ashkenazi is kind of similar to having white privilege in Israel. There's a lot of racism historically as well. The Ashkenazis came first, so they were kind of very much in power in the government as well as in society, and there was a lot of discrimination towards Mizrahi Jews who came later.
From the Arab countries?
From the Arab countries, yeah. And most of them came later, like in the 50s, I think, 60s. So I was part of this, privileged group in a way.
Did you, just as a matter of, personal development, were you aware? I mean, I noticed in your article in Vashti that you talk about the process which led you to become aware of the difference between yourself and your, was it cousins they were called, the Palestinians?
Cousins.
Yeah, in the next village along.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot of kind of stories of coming out of the Zionist closet, if you will. And something that I noticed is a lot of people have this moment of awakening, like something happens, some event, something that they see. For a lot of them, actually, as part of their military service. That's like the breaking point for a lot of people. And it's very much like, it's a process that's very much led by ideological sort of development. But for me, it wasn't like that at all. Like for me, it was from a very young age, intuitively sensing that something was wrong. And the ideology kind of came later. Yeah, and I don't know why it's like that. I've thought about it a lot, and I can't explain it. The only cue that I kind of have is that my mom always used to tell me from as long as I can remember that I won't go to the army. That's how like.
Okay, so why did she say that? What?
I don't know. So I think part of it is like there is almost this like cliche platitude that parents, that Israeli, especially liberal Zionist Israeli parents say to their children, oh, when you grow up, you won't have to serve because we won't need military anymore because we'll have.
It'll be over.
Right, exactly. Without bothering to think about like, okay, well, how would we, like, why don't we have it? Like,
So is that what she meant when she was saying this?
I think so. That would be my guess because like my parents were definitely liberal Zionists, like, so they weren't in any way radical. But in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, there was, especially in the 90s, there was a pretty large camp of like leftist Israeli Zionists. There was like, I think it was as far left as Israel ever got with like parties like Meretz. I don't know if you've heard of them, but socially they were actually very progressive. Like there was a lot of progress on like gay rights in the 90s and stuff like that, education, women equality, these kind of things. But in everything to do with like the Nakba and the actual problem, the actual problems that Israel was like founded on, like they were Zionists, just socially progressed Zionists. So that's kind of what my mom was. And I think also she had a horrible experience in the military herself, so she didn't really want it for me. But I don't think she thought about it much. But for me, you know how like when you're young, things that sound different just sort of stick in your brain.
Trigger something.
Yeah, exactly. They trigger something. And I think that was like first part of it. So for me, the first time I sort of snapped into reality, like kind of thing, I was 3 or 4 years old. I was like in preschool or nursery or whatever. At that age. And my teacher told us that it was Purim, which is a Jewish holiday where one of the traditions is that you send like gifts of food to your friends, especially candy and like sweets and stuff like that. And she told us that we were going to prepare packages for soldiers and send sweets to soldiers, and she wanted us to like draw some pictures.
Random soldiers, not soldiers that you knew necessarily, just soldiers.
Oh no, just soldiers. Yeah. You know, she probably described it as like the brave soldiers who guard us, and that's usually how soldiers are explained to children. And I just really remember myself. I was sitting on the floor with all the other children around, you know, like in a circle or something, and we're all looking at her. And I remember myself like, literally, like my brain stopped, and I was like, "Wait a minute, what?" And I looked at all the other children, and they didn't seem to think that was anything weird about what she just said. But for me, I was just like, wait a minute, like something is off. Because as a child, you always hear that like violence is wrong and war is wrong. And all of those, again, like platitude that people tell children. But then suddenly this absolute contradiction, like why are we sending soldiers? It doesn't make sense. It means that we love them, that we like, what are we thanking them for? Like something just didn't make sense to me.
So it's kind of, would you describe it as like a clash with your liberal, up to then liberal, very liberal childhood about sharing and love and all this thing, and then all of a sudden these symbols of violence?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like you said, it was almost like this clash between my sort of liberal hippie, because my parents were also hippies as well, as you read in the article.
Yeah, in the article, yeah.
So and everyone around me, like all the adults as well, like including the teacher who told me that, like she had this long hair, and like I really loved her as well, like looked up to her, and she was this gentle, like kind person, and suddenly saying something like that. So it was really, and you said like it's interesting that I remember that, but I do because it was such a powerful moment, and I really think that that's what started for me, this entire like thing, and I couldn't go back from there, like.
At such an early age, that's quite I mean, that is very young to do. So how did that change affect you from then onwards, like in school and in the family and your community and everything? How did that develop?
Yeah, so basically in Israel, you go through different stages of the indoctrination, where obviously it gets worse and more intrusive and more intense the closer you get to serving in the army. That's where they really turn up the indoctrination dial. But as I said, it started at a very young age with sending candy to soldiers coming to preschool to visit you, and then elementary school, and then basically when you start school, that's where it really becomes more formal, and then the entire syllabus, basically, in Israel. Ilan Pape wrote about it, a really good article about the Israeli education system and how it's entirely geared towards creating soldiers and reinforcing this myth of the state of Israel is the only and necessary and the only guarantee to Jewish safety. And this story of like, from the Holocaust to the state of Israel, like, and the connection between them in a way that's completely distorted and ignores the historical facts as well. So to your question of like how this early realization sort of impacted my childhood, it affected it a lot, because I always had this sense, even at a young age, where you're not really, like, the indoctrination is not that strong because you're still very young and it's in the background. Still, I always knew that there was this like gap between my friends and I. Like, they never questioned, like, all the Jewish holidays, all the Memorial Days, Independence Days, all those celebrations of nationalities and Jewish superiority. They just never questioned it. They just like celebrated it without any sort of, with no qualms. Like, and for me, there was always this something in the background. I mean, obviously, I still participated in the celebrations because that's what you just do as a child. But there was always this thing in the background that I just didn't feel comfortable with. Always this open question. And then as I got older, I think around the age of 14, 15 in high school, that's where it gets serious. So basically, joining the army is a really long process. It starts when you're 16. You get what is called Tzav Rishon, first, order. Mm-hmm. It's basically a letter from the army that tells you it's your time. You need to come and start, go through all the stages of exams and medical exams and psychological exams, that at the end of them we decide where you belong in the army. And
just to be clear, every Israeli citizen is subject to this.
Every Jewish Israeli citizen.
Sorry, I should be specific. Yeah, every Jewish Israeli citizen. That's a good point, actually. So the Palestinian Israeli citizens are specifically excluded from military service, but
except for the Druze.
Except for the Druze.
And the Bedouins, some of them.
Okay. And in the Jewish population, it's some of the more fundamentalist Jewish sects, which don't have to participate in military life as well. Okay, but the norm for Jewish citizens of Israel is that at 16, you start this process.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And as part of this process, the school is very heavily involved in that.
So would you say high school is almost like a branch of the military, but at that time, at that age?
I think,
to that age?
In a way, yes, definitely. It's definitely like the propaganda arm of the military. That's how they communicate with the sort of people who are intended to serve. It's not that it's like military school. Like, no. We didn't have like you don't wear uniforms. Yeah, it does very much. That's also like part of the fucked up thing about Israel is how much it appears to be a normal country or like a normal place, sort of even a liberal place. My school was also like very liberal in many ways, right? But the underlying violence is always there. So yeah, it's the way in which schools are part of the army is in the way that is in the propaganda and in the way they mentally, psychologically prepare you to be a soldier, and that's why at that age I became more explicit in my activism just because I had to be, because I couldn't. Most people just either they're really into the military and these whole things, or they just go along, right? And that I would say most of the people, because that's just the thing that you do. It's like almost like going to uni here. Like there's nothing special about it. It becomes special if you want to do something different. It becomes very problematic, but you have to decide. And for someone like me, who absolutely from like almost the age of 5 knew that I wasn't going to be a soldier, like I had to take a stance.
So you took a...
Yeah.
And what form did that stand take?
So I became like really active in different anti-military groups in Israel at the time, which, to be honest, I don't know if they exist anymore.
I was going to say, were there many? I mean...
Well, compared to today, yeah.
So you were called up for this 2 week or this week-long... 2 weeks, did week, or I can't remember you said this.
1 week.
1 week. And did you go?
No, I didn't.
Right, so you refused to go.
Yeah.
How did your parents react?
So my parents were supportive.
Okay.
Yeah, so my parents were supportive because I think mostly because they're kind of liberal, kind of hippie leftist stance, and also not so much in the political sense, but just in the kind of anti-authoritarian sense. They were really kind of like, my dad especially is like really just has problems with authority. So like I don't think he was like especially excited about me going like being a soldier.
Had they both been?
Yeah.
They'd both served, yeah.
Yeah.
Had it affected them at all?
Good question. I mean, I think probably. I mean, I know my mom had a really terrible experience. She told me about it, but it was especially just to do with like, not politically, but just the fact that army is such a terrible organization.
In any country.
Yeah, in any country. So I think she specifically suffered a lot from like misogyny and like I think sexual harassment and those kind of things, which I think in her time were much more prevalent. Like I think today the army, they definitely make a big deal out of like presenting themselves as progressive, as crazy as it sounds, right? Like that's one of the craziest things always like about the IDF is like how it's like the Israeli Hasbara, you know, like how Israel always tries to present itself as this progressive state, like with like gay rights and women equality and all of those things. The military does the same things. Like there was a really big deal a few years ago where like the first transgender combat soldier, right? And it's so crazy. And when I was younger, I think it was about like female pilots. I was like,
yeah, because you want to be bombed by a female pilot, don't you? Exactly. That makes you feel much better. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've moved now to enjoy a bit of the sunshine, and we're going to carry on from here. Okay, cool. So we're talking about the basically indoctrination of school and how you joined an anti-military. You refused to sign up, and you joined an anti-military group when you were 16. Is that right?
Yeah, 16.
And your parents were more or less supportive.
yeah.
How did it unfold in terms of relations with your peers and school and authorities?
Yeah, so I think something I wanted to say, like to explain, is that where I grew up, it was even more tricky in the sense of being like a conscientious objector and so yeah, standing up to those things because it was a liberal Zionist society. So in a way, there was like almost like gaslighting as well, because everyone around me, like my peers, my friends at school, and the adults as well, considered themselves leftists and progressives. And when I sort of challenged them and tried to like just speak to them beyond their kind of liberal Zionist framework, which basically said, oh, we need a two-state solution. So we just like, we kind of concentrate all the efforts on that, on like getting the right party into power and, you know, not building any more new settlements and all of those things. But to me, it was obviously never about that. It was just about the whole thing is wrong, the whole concept is wrong. But I think at the time, there was a bit of a knowledge gap. Like I didn't have all the knowledge yet, so I wasn't like necessarily able to present a well-formed argument. It was more like teenage rebellion and a lot of like teenage rage as well against the fact that they were all just doing this dumb thing, right? Like, and in some cases putting their own life on the line if they were men, right? Because you're going to be a combat soldier, there's a good possibility that you get killed, but even worse, like becoming murderers, right? And I just couldn't see. Like, to me, it was such and absurd, and it was so plain to see that like there is no difference if you wear uniforms, right, or if you don't wear uniforms or whatever it is. Like you're taking a gun and you're shooting someone, or just the same, like participating in the system that does that. What is the difference? Like I just really couldn't understand it, but every argument just got to this point that for me was such a fundamental thing, but for them it was like covered in all of those layers of justifications, and we couldn't find a shared language.
So how did you develop on your arguments, and was it because you were forced to, I suppose, rather?
Yeah, so when it got to the point of actually having to you know, face the military and get myself out of there, basically the only pathway for me was to be a conscientious objector, so to declare myself pacifist, which I am, but obviously.
Was there a mechanism for this?
Yeah. So basically, it's illegal to not serve in the army because of your political opinions. So if you disagree with the occupation of the West Bank, and you don't want to serve in the occupied territories, that's illegal, and you'll go to prison. And for men, that's the only path, because men are not allowed to be pacifists.
So women are allowed to be pacifists,
Yes.
but men aren't.
Yeah, so there's a specific special clause in military law that says that women can request to be exempt based on pacifism, and then you have to go through, which I did, which I'll get to in a second. It's a really long and difficult process, but men can't do that. Yeah. So if you are a conscientious objector as a man, you go to jail.
So you were going through these processes, the steps to get to the point where you wouldn't have to serve anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So the first step is to go and just say, you know, I'm not going to, and then they just kind of let you go, because again, they don't really give a shit. Like, the army is this very inefficient sort of organization where all of those 18-year-olds kind of just wasting time basically and just walking around, because, you know, there are the combat units, but also there is like this huge organization of people that really don't have to do that much, and they're just pretty much wasting time for 2 or 3 years. So those are the people that you meet initially when you're going through the whole bureaucracy. You just go, you go back and you wait to hear from them, and then I got this summon to go to see this committee. There is a special committee. It's actually called the Conscious Committee. It's like a crazy name. And you basically have to convince them that you are a pacifist. Like, their goal is...
How do you,
exactly. So
apart from I don't want to fight, what else?
So that's exactly why it's so ridiculous, is because their goal is to catch you, to get you, and to prove that you're not a pacifist, you're just politically, like, against the army. So
Right.
The line of questioning is, okay, so would you not serve in any army? And yes, of course, you have to say that you wouldn't serve in any, not even the Swiss army. And then they start to get really like nasty. And for example, one of the questions that I was asked, okay, and what do you think about the police? And like, oh yeah, police is wrong as well. Okay, so what if you, let's say that you're walking down the street with a friend and someone comes and tries to rape her? Like literally, that's what they said, right? It's like, okay, I guess I call the police because it's like this, like it's this knee-jerk response, right? Yeah. You don't really think about it, and oh, so what? Like,
it's like the childish.
It's so childish.
Level of
it's so childish.
Yeah, absurd.
It's really it is really childish. They're all like 30 years older than you, like they're really, really senior, at least my committee was. And they are very, very hostile.
And you're, what, 18?
Yeah.
So an 18-year-old, young 18-year-old woman facing presumably mainly men.
Yeah, there was one woman. Even though I thought I was prepared, because, by the way, one of the things that New Profile, this group I was a part of, one of the things that they do is help you prepare for those committees. They kind of give you resources and information and sort of,
Talk you through it.
Yeah, exactly, like the type of questions that you probably get asked. So I thought I was prepared, and I think I was in my mind, but not mentally. And yeah, I just broke, which in hindsight, maybe it wasn't the worst thing to do, you know what I mean? Because at least I guess I seemed like this hypersensitive, just someone who just couldn't handle.
We don't want a flower in our eye.
Yeah, exactly, right. I went traveling for a year because you can't really do anything because you can't, you're not exempt.
Can't start anything.
Exactly. I went to Ireland. I lived there for like 6 months, and I volunteered in this place for this community for people with special needs. And it was definitely like a positive experience just being outside of Israeli society and like for the first time just kind of living in a normal society. And then you realize how crazy it is, but also you realize how much the rest of the world really doesn't give a fuck. And like they just live their life and they live normal life, and there is so much more to life as well. Do you know what I mean? And I guess it just kind of helped me sort of open my mind and understand that like that life is bigger than that. And I think when I went back and when I and had to do the committee the second time, they didn't have the same power over me, because I felt like, okay, like I know that there is more than
There's
that.
an alternative. It doesn't have to be like.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't seem as intimidating. And I think also I was 18 and they didn't really they weren't, I mean, it was definitely not the same as the first time. Like the questioning was much more like, it wasn't at all as intimidating and as like hostile. So I feel like they kind of were planning to let me go at that point. Because how much are they going to fight for one single person and a woman as well, which is not.
So the women weren't involved in combat duties then?
Not really. I mean, they're not really involved even today. I mean, I'm not an expert on the inner workings of the military, but I think women are involved in combat units, but I don't think there are any women who actually go into Gaza, for example. I think there are some women pilots. So yeah, there are women dropping bombs, which is a win.
Which is a big step forward, isn't it?
It's a huge step forward.
Step forward, yeah. We love it. Yeah,
I'm very proud.
Yeah. So by this time, your views on militarism and pacifism were obviously firmly established. But what about your views on Zionism more generally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I didn't have a lot of views on Zionism at the time. Like I said, I think my objection to the military and to my rejection of Israeli society as a whole came out of much more like a sort of intuitive place and not so much out of ideology. And I definitely didn't have all the facts. I didn't know as much as I know now. it's also very, very hard to see Zionism when you're inside it.
Fish and water, isn't it?
Even, and you can really, I think the fact that like someone like me who rejected all of the, basically rejected the Zionist indoctrination without knowing what I was rejecting. To me, I was just rejecting what I grew up with, which is violence, racism, discrimination.
Just picking you up on that bit, that part of it, the racism and discrimination, which is obviously an essential part of Zionism. You were aware of that, and you talk about it in your article, which I thought was really interesting, about the neighbouring village and how it all changed, and that you saw your liberal community, you know, were very open, they're just our neighbours down the road, no problem. And then 2000, Second Intifada, 2002 was it? Then everything changed.
Yeah, everything changed, and also nothing changed. It just sort of came to the surface, what was always there.
Is that what did that moment? Is that the moment that kind of took your criticism to a different level? Your critique of your society?
I think it was definitely one of the moments, because the discrimination and the racism is so plain. I mean, it's there to see every moment of your life, right? The fact that there are all of these people who basically live with you in the same place you live, like 5 minutes away from you, but they don't go to your school. You don't mix in any way. Like, I mean, the most you mix is when, you know, we go to eat hummus or like buy some groceries.
And these are Israeli citizens?
Yeah.
Of Palestinian origin. These are Palestinian Israelis?
Yeah, Palestinian Israelis. So 48 Palestinians, I guess.
Yeah, so there's, you know, one of the big arguments that Israeli Zionists make is about, you know, these citizens live, these Palestinians, they have the same rights as us, they share exactly the same services, rights, etc., but already what you're saying is that it's quite obvious that there was a discrimination against them.
Yeah, I think Israel is, it's funny, again, Ilan Pape always says that Israelis think that Hebrew is this like secret language that no one can read and no one can understand, so they like say things in Hebrew that they wouldn't say in English, but like, okay, we can just use like Google Translate. Why?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with how Zionists speak about like Palestinian citizens of Israel, because it's enough to just go and see and you'd immediately see that that's a complete lie. I mean, so as a child, you know, we used to just drive through the villages, because where I live, as you read in the article, there's a majority Palestinian population, right? And their villages are really big and our settlements are really small. And not only the Palestinian villages are big, they're also very crowded, and they don't have good roads, they don't have parks, there's no greenery. Most of them are very poor. And you can plainly see it. It's not hard to see, right? As a child, you drive through, and I remember like asking my parents, like, why does it look like that? Like, why does it look nice?
What did your parents say?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I need to ask my sister. I think probably something along the line of like, I think it depends on which stage in their like political like journey they were, because they became a bit more right wing.
They became more right wing.
Yeah,
okay.
Like everybody in Israel, but we can get on that anyway. But I think it sort of moved between because you know their local council is very corrupt and they don't invest.
So it was always their fault.
It was always their fault, of course. I mean, yeah, it's always
they're lazy. They don't know how to do the work properly.
Yeah. They have a different culture. Yeah. That's like the liberal Zionist thing to say. Their culture is different. You know, they care about different things. Like they don't care about like, I don't know, like dirty streets, because
they don't care about education as much as we do.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a classic. I mean, it's a universal argument that is used.
Yeah, and it's kind of chilling now to think about like the level of racism that I just like absorbed as a child, and I have to be also honest and say that I don't think I challenged it as much, because I just kind of accepted it.
So intrinsic.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's really interesting, isn't it? That it's almost impossible to separate from your daily life, from your ordinary life. Even growing up as a liberal Zionist, that racism was so deeply embedded in the way the culture functioned that even for someone like you, who was, taking a big step in refusing to join the armed forces, even you struggled to see it. I mean, that's quite telling, isn't it?
yeah.
So when did that change?
I think it really changed only after I left. For me, the first line was the militarism. No way, like no matter what, I'm not going to be a part of it. Like that's just not. But I still lived there. I still participated. I still was part of it. So
Sure. Well, it's almost impossible not to be. If you're living there,
Yeah.
you are part of it almost.
yeah, and that's why I had to leave. And I always knew that I will have to leave because I couldn't really live there. I was just surviving. It wasn't life. It wasn't life for me. And the more the older I got, because I moved to London when I was 27 with my partner.
From Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the last few years in Israel, we were completely isolated.
Why do you think you were so isolated? Was there no? I mean, why do you think there's such a tiny minority of people who feel like you?
I suppose it's very hard to when people ask me especially since 7th of October, oh, how come Israelis are so willing to go along with it? How come not more people are standing up to it? It's so terrible. It's clearly terrible. And I think honestly, it's not that hard to understand. I mean, it's painful to say, but when everything you have, everything you hold dear, is tied in with this system or with this indoctrination or with this state of mind, and you know that if you challenge it, if you question it, if you give it up, you would have to give everything up. That's not something that most people are willing to do. It's not a price that most people are willing to pay. And I don't think most of the people who ask this question would necessarily be willing to pay this price as well. And that's in no way justifying anything.
It's recognition of structures of power. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's important to understand that there isn't anything unique about the indoctrination that goes on in Israeli society and the brainwashing that goes on there.
That's a really interesting point. Okay, so it is kind of being presented as unique, isn't it, now? And it's being presented as, I suppose, partly historically, because it's the last settler colonial society that's active, if you like, rather than historically active. It's presently active in perpetrating its horrors, for want of a better word. But I think this point is quite a crucial one about why people do accept what is being done in their name, and B, why it's hard for other people to understand that they would probably do the same. So yes, I think that's a really good point, and perhaps we all need to remember that Israelis are human beings like the rest of us and subject to the same ideological structures. But in terms of your role in it and your escape from it, what was the final push?
To me, I think it's the last battle, liberal Zionism, the thought, the belief that there is something to be done within this existing framework. It just all started to seem so futile to me, which it is. I think that to this day, because what am I fighting for here? This is why also I never voted in the elections in Israel, not even once, because I just couldn't bring myself to, they were all Zionists.
It's a bit like here now, isn't it?
Yeah. I vote Greens, but...
Yeah, but, they're certainly the main party, they're all neoliberals, so how can you choose between them?
Yeah. It's like being a reformist, right, as opposed to being revolutionary, I guess. But I guess here, I think that's the difference. We just said, like, you know, how there is nothing unique, but I guess there are different layers to this. Obviously, in terms of the circumstances, there can be something unique in any like specific place and time, right? And in Israel, the unique thing is the stakes, basically, right? Like, if you are a reformist in Israel, that means at this moment in time more terrible things that it means here.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it means a continuation of the brutal settler colonialism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I could never vote, and that's why I eventually couldn't live there anymore, because I went to uni in Jerusalem, and you could see the separation wall from my rented flat where I lived.
And your university was just Jewish?
Well, we actually had a few Palestinian students. I went to Bezalel. It's art university. So again, very progressive.
That just seems such a counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, I know you've all the way along from your parents' perspective, from your community, the kind of hippie-ish community that you described so well in the Vashti article, which I recommend everybody read, by the way, and this liberal hippieism, which is so much at odds with the reality.
Yeah.
And even in terms of the higher education, in the heart of Jerusalem, when you've got the Palestinian in East Jerusalem right next to you and the wall, and you're still able to operate as a kind of liberal institution.
The most important asset of the Zionist regime is denial. Without it, it just couldn't survive. And it's unbelievable to what extent this denial goes.
It is, and don't you think that's one of the things that's now cracking, is that the denial, there's still this remnants of the liberal Zionism, if you like, that are still intent on, to listen to that vile man Mensa talking about, always repeating, we are the most moral army in the world, and the most, democracy, and yet Smotrich and co are very open about it now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of changed, hasn't it? That kind of openness, that fig leaf of denial no longer works, does it now so much?
Yeah. And that's, by the way, that's why I kind of changed my mind kind of recently about BDS. I always agreed, obviously, but I wasn't convinced as to the efficacy. And I think it actually changed since the 7th of October, because there was such a shift in the global popular opinion about Israel, right? But I completely changed my opinion, and I now completely see the impact of BDS and how I think it played and plays an active role in what you're talking about, in this crack in the last sort of remnants of liberal Zionists that can just live in this denial, because more and more artists are refusing to perform in Israel. Musicians, Israeli universities, Israeli researchers are struggling to get budgets. All of those things that are kind of the bread and butter of secular, liberal, Zionist Israeli life, right? That allow them for so many years to live in this state of bliss of oh yeah, we can do all of those horrible things. We can oppress millions of people and also actively take part in it for 3 years, actually murder people, but then we can just go and live a nice liberal westernized life, right? And no one is going to say anything about it. Well, now people are saying things about it, and it's very, very, very uncomfortable for the liberal Zionists.
So one of the most interesting things that's happened since the 7th of October is obviously the change in the attitude of Jewish people, particularly young Jewish people, in the West, in the US and the UK, and obviously in Europe, where each country they're facing different levels of repression and intimidation. So what's your experience of how that's changed over the last, since the 7th of October, and what the effect of that is going to be, do you think, long term?
I think it's going to have a huge effect. I mean, obviously, like a lot of people have already talked about it, but the Jewish diaspora, especially in the U.S., is like one of Israel's most important assets, right? It's not for nothing that they invest all of those millions in bringing teenagers on this all-inclusive luxury trips, right? It's called Birthright, and it's so the reason it's so important is because those people are like ambassadors, right?
Or propagandists?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. Like, do you know the term hasbara? It means literally to explain. And it's funny that's it's this Israeli arrogance that's what they think they're doing. They're just explaining to all those stupid to all the stupid non-Jews, like what really is going on, right? But those, especially American youth, are really a really important part of this, right? Because obviously they are part of the culture back home, so they can be those very efficient agents.
And obviously it's important for them to make sure it's generational, that it gets each generation picks up that Hasbara baton and continues. So has there been a break in that, do you think?
I think so. I mean, obviously I'm not a part of this cohort. I'm not an American or a British Jew. I'm an Israeli Jew, but I have met, like, since 7th of October, I've met quite a few people my age who are actual British Jews, like who grew up here, and some of them went on those trips or grew up Zionists, you know, especially in Namod. I don't know. Yeah, so Namod is this organization of British Jews, non-Zionist British Jews, and I went to some of their events, and yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear. I don't think anyone can deny that it's definitely shifting. They're just not buying it anymore. I don't know that a lot of them ever fully bought into it, but it's definitely cracking.
So how as an Israeli Jew then living in this country, how are you, what's your emotional experience since before the 7th of October and what changed after the 7th of October?
Well, my initial experience immediately after the 7th of October was mostly a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. So I think it was in October or November last year. Sorry, 2 years ago.
23, yeah.
Yeah, 23.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. And my partner and I I think we went to see like a concert in the West Bank, and we were having coffee after, and there was a march it was a Saturday, so there was one of the first national demos, and people just kind of, I think it was over, and people started like flowing in from the area, so we saw a guy with the Palestine flag, and then another guy, and then another guy, and both of us.
Did you say West Bank? Did you mean the South Bank?
Oh my God, did I say West Bank?
West.
That's
crazy. Wow, that's an interesting slit. Yeah. Okay, South Bank. Yeah, in this country, in London. Okay, just to be sure.
Yes, the South Bank, the South Bank Centre in London.
Yeah.
And we were trying to occupy it. Yeah. Because that's just what Israelis do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were having coffee, and
there's some great memes around that. I know. Great jokes around. Yeah.
We were having coffee, and we started seeing all those people with like Palestinian flags and keffiyehs, and I saw on his face that he was feeling exactly the same way as I was, like just like, oh my God. And we talked about it later, and we just both felt such a wave of like shame and guilt. And that's where I realized that I have to reignite my activism.
Right. So you kind of left that behind.
I left that behind. Yeah. When I moved to London, I completely just focused on being like a normal person.
Having a chance to do that.
Kind of, yeah. To be fair, like, because I wasn't really living until then, and started like, you know, just developing, just like normal career and also like my interest in art and all those things that I wasn't able to do before. But yeah, I didn't want to hear about Israel. I didn't want to know about Israel. I just wanted to forget because I'm traumatized, which we all are. But I just couldn't do it anymore. The wave, just the wave of shame that I felt.
It's interesting that you felt that, because there could have been a wave of maybe joy that actually things are, reaction is starting, resistance is starting, that the whole situation is coming home a bit here, and that people are starting to act, which I want to ask you about as well. But in terms of, it's that you felt the shame and the guilt about what Israelis was doing to Palestinians.
I think I had to confront my own feelings and my own experience first and my own memories that I suppressed for many, many years. When we left in 2014, it was...
After Castled or...
Yeah. And literally we left while there were rockets on Tel Aviv, where we lived at the time, and while Israel was again like bombing, nothing like what we're seeing now, obviously, but still killing thousands of people, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I just didn't want to know about it. I literally felt like I was escaping, and I just had to like isolate myself completely from all of that, which I'm, not. I was able to do, but obviously, like if I was Palestinian, I couldn't have done it, right? But I think that's also part of where the shame came from, because I was able to get away. But then, obviously, after the 7th of October, I just felt like, okay, well, I can't just not engage with it anymore. So that's when I started like going to demos and just slowly started to re-engage with the whole thing. And then Strawberry Fields also like came along, and I had to like also find the way that I could be effective, I guess. And yeah.
So do you think the trauma is, I mean, it's obviously still there, but do you think you've exorcised it a bit? And do you think you've been able to face up to it by engaging in activism now? And has it relieved it a bit?
Yeah, I think so. Also, I've done a lot of therapy, which I recommend to everyone. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely speaking up, like writing this article, for example, was really like a really kind of like a cleansing experience, like some of my hippie friends would say. Like it just allowed me to just say all those things out loud that I was just kind of keeping inside for so long. But yeah, definitely also just activism in general, because there's just something very validating about being listened to after you've just been kind of violently sort of shut down for your whole life.
Although it must be disturbing to see that there is a kind of shutting down going on here as well, not obviously to the level that happening in Israel, but that I think that's one of the things that's affected all of us who've been engaged, is that we thought, well, this is really we're going to have a big impact here, and to see that the establishment closing ranks across the whole Western world, it's been quite shocking. What do you make of the siding of the British ruling class with the Zionist fascists?
I mean, I think it's so funny. It's just the same old story, right? Like the Europeans are ghettoizing the Jews.
The irony of it, yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's very disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. Like I'm like, okay, well, if if we're at the point where the German government tells me that I can't say something because it's anti-Semitic, that's fucked up.
I think we're at that. I think we passed that
I
point.
know, right? What's wrong with that picture?
German police arresting Jewish demonstrators on the street with the yarmulke, wearing the yarmulke, and they're being arrested.
Yeah.
It's quite astonishing. I mean, tell us a bit about Strawberry Fields and what you've been doing with them.
I heard about Strawberry Fields from just someone I met in the Green Party, basically, and she was a member, and she just like told me about this event that they were doing, Conversations for Palestine, in one of the local cafes in Berkeley. And
just to explain, that Strawberry Fields is a pro-Palestinian group that is based in Telegraph Hill, which is in southeast London. You cross southeast London.
Yes, it started as, I think, quite a kind of spontaneous like initiative by the two founders who just, I think they just like met each other and started talking and realized that they were both missing a space where they can actually talk about those things, because it's so difficult to talk about because of the things that we just mentioned. So they just started this group, and it is still a very new group, but also what I like about it is it's very kind of informal, and it is really a collective, right? So we're all people who just care about this issue and try to be active in our communities to raise awareness. And I think it's really a grassroots organization in that sense, in the most like real sense of the word, because we don't have like far-reaching policies or strategies or anything like that. We're just really like trying to focus on this moment and what needs to happen right now. And I think what needs to happen right now is that more people need to be empowered to be able to speak up, because still, I feel like especially in this country, and British society also has very strong kind of something that I basically love about British society, is because it doesn't exist in Israel, personal boundaries and politeness and just general respect. But I guess the less positive part of it is that a lot of people don't like to speak about things that are uncomfortable, right? Or might be uncomfortable. Even if they think that it's wrong, right? And my thing is really being like, I think that can be potentially my strength, is that because I am not only Jewish but Israeli, if people hear me say those things, maybe they will feel more comfortable saying them.
I think that's why we wanted to talk to you, because, okay, there are British Jewish people who would speak up, there are British non-Jewish people, but for people to hear an Israeli, instead of it being presented as a monolithic position, and all Israelis are totally supportive of their government, I think it's really crucial. So, hats off to you for doing it.
I think obviously, like, as individuals, we're all limited in what we can do, right? Like, even if we don't buy from Pret, or we don't open accounts with Barclays, I mean, I'm not saying it's not important, but it is limited. But I think where we have power is obviously, when we come together as groups, right? And whether we like join organizations like the PSC, or we just support the BDS and donate and give them more power so they can do the bigger things, right? Because I think the most important, the most impactful things that the BDS does is when they communicate to artists or people who are influential that they shouldn't cooperate, right? And then it becomes the opposite. It becomes the opposite, like where an individual person can actually do a lot because this individual is famous and influential, right? So I see that as like the biggest thing that the BDS can do, right? On the like.
So persuade.
Exactly. Persuade and
pressure and persuade.
Exactly. And I think that has a huge impact. Like if you read liberal Zionist media right now, like Haaretz, they're all about like, oh, this country is going to hell and we have to stop it. Not because maybe some of them care about Palestinians, but most of them just care about their own nice life.
If you know, looking in your crystal ball, your best guess, and I won't hold you to this, and
No, please
I
don't.
won't drag you back in a year's time and say, look,
Yeah. Well, I think it will take more than a year before we can say either way. But I mean, I think if we just look at the material facts, and Ilan Pappé said as well, definitely Israel is collapsing, right? It is the end of Zionism. What comes after, we don't know. I don't think, I definitely don't want to make a prediction.
do you
But
think the two-state solution is dead?
it was never alive.
I agree,
I
but-
think the two-state solution had this idea had such a hold over
Yeah.
the conversation for so long that it's going to take time to get to wash it completely out of the system.
Lamy still produces it, Starmer still produces
Yeah,
it.
but they're going to feel very embarrassed pretty soon, and I'm not surprised that they're still going on about this two-state solution. But I pretty sure they have no idea what it means, and if someone actually asked them, they wouldn't be able to defend it because it's indefensible.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or that you think I've left out, or
No, I think we covered a lot.
covered an awful lot? It's been fascinating, a privilege. I can honestly say that, a privilege to talk to you and to hear your history and your perspective. And thank you so much for coming along.
Oh, thanks
and
for
sitting in the sun at least now, not in the shade anymore, and sharing your thoughts with us. And good luck with your personal life, the non-Israeli bit, but also with your activism as well, because people like you are crucial too. So great. Thanks very much again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.